to Molly Glenn's senior speech. A warm welcome to her family who are with us today. Thank you for being here. Molly came to prep in the 9th grade, and I've been fortunate to teach her throughout her time here, including time spent abroad this past summer in Italy. Molly loves to see new things and learn. Molly is also a deeply creative soul. She's a writer and a poet. She loves to create visual arts as well. Lately, her medium of choice is glass mosaics. Perhaps you saw her Madonna and Child mosaic in the front hall last month. I hope you did. It was a beautiful work. And now, another one of her creative endeavors, her senior speech. Please welcome Molly to the stage.
Firstly, thank you to Ms. Chokshi for being my advisor these past 3 years. Thank you to my teachers for always being there for me. And finally, thank you to my family for coming today. It means the world to me. Today, I want to talk to you all about something that I find very interesting and that I have a personal connection to. Growing up with red hair has always gotten me a lot of attention and put me through lots of teasing. Some of my favorite taunts include that I'm a leprechaun, hey leprechaun, where's your pot of gold? Hey, do you have a soul? And my favorite, look, it's Ginny Weasley. One of my earliest memories is of an older woman cornering me in an elevator and telling me that dyeing my hair would be, quote, a horrible mistake. I experienced versions of this same conversation multiple times in my childhood, and when talking with my other redhead friends, I realized that this type of memory isn't exclusive to me. In fact, this unwanted attention is a shared experience among the redheads. A 1997 survey found that hair color was the common opening topic of conversation for 69% of redheads. That's as tiring as it sounds. This led me to wonder if redheads have always provoked this much attention. Has society always been so obsessed? I quickly found that the answer was yes, and that's what inspired me to explore red hair's significance in art and mythology. But before I can talk about red hair, you have to understand why it happens, genetically. The MC1R gene, found on chromosome 16, is the gene that is responsible for deciding the pigmentation of our hair. There are two pigmentations it decides the amount of, eumelanin and pheomelanin. Pheomelanin is what causes light skin and hair colors, and in people with red hair, this gene produces an excess of pheomelanin. This is what causes the stereotypical look of freckles and pale skin that redheads are known for. Red hair is also a recessive trait. Despite this, lots of people in my family have some shade of red hair. On the topic of science and red hair, a little known fact is that studies have shown that the mutations in the MC1R gene cause redheads to have an elevated pain tolerance. However, this mutation also makes them more resistant to anesthesia and painkillers. I have personally experienced this. Once, when at the dentist, after what felt like 5 shots, everything finally stopped hurting. The dentist said he had to give me about 2 times the normal dosage of anesthetic per person my weight. He also said to remind him that I'm a natural redhead next time. Artists have been portraying people with red hair for centuries. One notable artist who is obsessed with red hair is Titian. All of the works on the screen are done by him, and some images are details of larger paintings. Titian was an Italian artist who lived during the late Renaissance, and his best-known works are those of the Virgin and Child. There are 6 included on this slide. A significant number of his other works depict women and sometimes the rare man with red hair. Have you ever heard of the color Titian red? Well, that came from Titian. His works were so influential that he got a shade of red named after him. The works on this slide are only a small sample of his paintings. And as I mentioned before, his work set the stage for later painters who portrayed people with red hair. One painter who took this influence is John Waterhouse with his paintings of Lamina. In early stories, Lamina was the queen of ancient Libya who regrettably had an affair with Zeus. This affair resulted in children. When Zeus's wife, Hera, found out, she took Lamina's children and killed them. This led to Lamina's insanity. In an act of revenge, Lamina went down to earth and devoured every child she could get her hands on. Because of this story, the name Lamina became synonymous with Lamanai, a type of phantom, who seduces young men and, as with the children, eats them. She is often shown with serpent-like qualities and red hair. This is The Birth of Venus by Sandro Botticelli. In this famous work, the goddess Venus is shown coming out of a seashell. This is a depiction of the story of the birth of Venus. In this story, Venus emerges from the ocean, fully formed. Venus traditionally represents love and beauty, and it is because of this Botticelli decided to depict Venus with long red hair. Moving on in history, red hair has a large significance in Christian art. From Esau, the brother killer, to Mary Magdalene, the alleged prostitute, there is a plethora of red-haired characters in the Bible. But before I get into that, I would like to briefly summarize the first biblical story I will be referencing, the creation story. The first book of the Bible, called Genesis, is the creation story of the earth and all things on it. In 7 days, God created the heavens and the earth along with all of its flora and fauna. On the 6th day, God created man and woman in his image, Adam and Eve. The story of Lilith, a lesser-known and sometimes controversial story taken from the Apocrypha, is normally not accepted or known by most modern-day Christians. The story of Lilith goes that she was created at the same time and from the same clay as Adam and was his first wife. However, sometime later she was banished from the Garden of Eden because she was not obeying Adam. From that point on, she is portrayed as an immortal she-devil who, like Lamana, eats children. You can see this in the image on the left. This is a fresco that shows Adam shielding a child from Lilith, who is depicted as a serpent with a human head. Even this early painting shows her with red hair. Is this the first instance of red hair being associated with evil and temptation? This may have influenced the later work on the right. This work by Dante Rossetti shows Lilith as a beautiful young woman in a state of casual undress. She is looking at herself in a mirror, symbolizing her narcissism. However, on a side note, I'd like to make a point to say that Lilith is only said to be narcissistic because she was not at the whim and command of Adam, her husband. Does this really make her a narcissist and a demon? I'll leave that up to you. This painting is especially interesting because the artist also wrote a poem entitled Body's Beauty that complements the piece. It reads, "Of Adam's first wife Lilith it is told, the which he loved before the gift of Eve, that ere the snakes her sweet tongue could deceive, and her enchanted hair was the first gold. And still she sits young while the earth is old, and, subtly, of herself contemplative, draws men to watch the bright web she can weave, till heart and body and life are in its hold. The rose and poppy are her flower, for where is he not found? O Lilith, whom shed scent, and soft shed kisses, and soft sleep shall snare. Lo, as that youth's eyes burned at thine, so went thy spell through him, and left his straight neck bent, and round his heart one strangling golden hair." Now, if you weren't counting, that poem has 2 references to her golden red hair color. Mary Magdalene is another biblical figure who is depicted with red hair. There is some debate about whether or not she was actually a prostitute, but for the sake of time, I will be assuming that she was. Her story in a nutshell is one of repentance. From the Bible, Luke 7:37 reads, "A woman in that town who lived a sinful life learned that Jesus was eating at the Pharisee's house. So she came there with an alabaster jar of perfume. As she stood behind him at his feet weeping, she began to wet his feet with her tears. Then she wiped them with her hair, kissed them, and poured perfume on them." This lightly censored work on the left depicts her before her repentance. She is lying in a provocative manner and is naked. The work on the right depicts her after her repentance. She is upright and proper. Lastly, I of course couldn't discuss red hair in Christianity without discussing Christ. The work on the left by Vincent van Gogh is a Pieta. It is a typical Pieta where an older Jesus is shown with his mother, the Virgin Mary. The only atypical part, just like Vincent van Gogh, the artist, Jesus has red hair. One of my favorite paintings, the work on the right, also depicts Jesus with red hair, except here he is young and with his family. In these 2 paintings, red hair is used as a symbol for Jesus' divinity and otherness. This contrasts the negative stereotypes that red hair represents in women. In the end, all stereotypes are usually only skin deep. And next time you want to make fun of a ginger, think, are they really a leprechaun, a temptress, a prostitute, or are they simply divine? Thank you.